David, it's great to see you again.
Likewise, Mark, how are you?
I'm well. You're looking healthy.
As healthy as you can be, my man.
You're festive colors.
I followed the instructions and I tried to be as merry as I could today.
Awesome. Well, we got, folks, we've got some great news. We're back in the video game business and recording some interviews pertinent to David's insights that he's been releasing on a monthly basis. So let's get into it, David. So you've released the November 2021 analysis. Now let me ask you, what was surprising about November 2021?
Well, I mean, obviously, as you know, Mark, the top line numbers are showing a gain of about 6% year over year. And while that's, interesting, I think what surprised me, to answer your question, is really how well the mass channel is performing. And there's a variety of things you can look at, and we can talk about that here. But that's one thing in particular we've been talking about as we've isolated on cross shopping between grocery and mass and what that means. And I think just looking at the numbers that we have year over year in November really just kind of reinforces that point and brings it to light in many other ways.
Tell me a little more about the mass merchandisers. What are they doing that's been so dramatically successful, especially compared to previous years?
Well, I think if you really kind of start with it, they're executing against very sound strategies that are grounded in understanding who their customers are and why they shop with them and how they're different and where they can compete and win in the marketplace relative to online grocery. I mean, that's kind of the boilerplate elevator spiel. When you look back, I mean, there's plenty of evidence out there that shows what they're doing, the path they're going. For instance, Walmart, I had shared a couple months ago, had really aggressively expanded the number of pickup spots. My location, my local Walmart store now has over 30 pickup spots at the store. Target is following a similar approach where they're doubling the number of pickup spots at their stores, and my local Target has now 15. Now, you put that in contrast to what we see in traditional regional grocers. You may have 4 or 6 slots. So they're building an enormous amount of capacity. And there's a reason for that. If you actually dive into the numbers and look at the sales mix by fulfillment method, pickup, delivery, ship to home
Mm-hmm.
for Walmart and Target, and whether you back out ship to home or not, compare that against grocery, and the mass channel is probably pushing 2 times the share of orders through pickup as opposed to grocery. So let me put that in context. If grocery is running 40 to 50% order share through pickup, mass is around 70 to 75% through pickup. From a cost to serve perspective, that's obviously much lower cost, which means improved profitability. That's one element of why pickup's growing. And another is control. They have greater control of the custody of those products. It's very similar to shopping in the store. The customer takes possession or title of those products in the parking lot, and then they're responsible for bringing them home. So what you can see is that they're building that capacity. They're also obviously leveraging capabilities that they've built around supporting pickup. Now, that's not really clear if you're an industry observer reading the media, because all the media headlines are focused on delivery and seem to be fixated on faster delivery today. Now, the smart money is really focused on pickup, but the smart money can't really invest in pickup the same way they can invest in delivery. So they're somewhat of in a conundrum, but that's a distraction mainly for the regional grocers, and that is don't lose focus of where the growth is and where the core strength is.
So you've alluded to the fact that delivery versus pickup, and that pickup is dominant. Uh, can you touch on very briefly how a grocer can compete with a mass merchant the mass merchandisers who seem to have gotten the strategy right with the pickup experience?
Yeah. So not to oversimplify it because it's easier said than done,
Mm-hmm.
is for the regional local grocer, the conventional grocer who's going up against the large mass retailers like Walmart or Target, they need to understand where they play within that ecosystem, because it's not going to be a sound strategy to try to compete on price, right? If the EDLP player is doing something, it's not necessarily wise to simply follow the EDLP based on price. So your differentiation has to come somewhere else. And where we still see the gap or the opportunity, depending on who we're talking to, is really bringing to life what had differentiated them in the physical world, in the digital world. So now we go to the service departments, which are still relatively underdeveloped online. And there are features and functions that you and I have talked about over the recent past that more conventional grocers or regional grocers should be evaluating and bringing to market and highlighting, because those very features, in terms of being able to shop online like the way you shopped in the store, could be the points of difference that compel someone to shop with you versus someone who simply has lower prices.
You're right, 100%. We've talked about how grocers can compete by emphasizing the customer experience, but you've also touched on in other areas this notion of assortment, but also understand what your differentiators are. Understand, what separates you from other retailers, and that requires a lot of understanding as to why customers come into your store.
Yeah, we can talk about being customer centric or immersing yourself in your customer, but let's just use English, plain English. You just need to be your customer for a day and be the customer of your competitors. Look at, watch, and learn why someone comes into your store, how they engage and interact with employees and departments. So take, for instance, my family. If you were to watch us doing that, you would see us engaging with the service deli and requesting custom sliced, ultra thin salami. Now, the question is, would I buy salami online from my primary grocer today? The answer is no. And the reason for me is quite simple. That is, I can't get the product the way I want when I shop online. Therefore, I'm not going to buy it online unless I do find a retailer in my proximity that could offer that. Now, I'm not suggesting that I'm going to change retailers simply for a thin sliced salami, but we can extend this this topic even into the meat department and look at thicknesses of cuts of meat as an example, or even party platters and home prepared meals that are hot, and saying these are the areas that we offer that the mass retailers generally don't. Let's keep in mind that neither Target nor Walmart have saws in their meat department in the stores. Everything is pre-packaged, pre-portioned. That's not true in most regional retailers. So as they go online, really the question they have to ask is, how important is that to our shoppers?
Yep.
And if it's important, how are we bringing that experience online so it's more seamless relative to shopping inside the store?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's again going back to the basics. What differentiates you from the retailer around the block? 100%. Let me jump on another aspect of the insights that you're putting out there, and it's one that comes, the question that we always ask is what is it that retailers still continue to struggle when it comes to executing their eGrocery strategy? And are you seeing any progress?
Well, it's we live in the real world where things are changing, all the time. The competitors are reacting to threats, and also the environment's changing. I mean, obviously in the near term, what we've seen that we didn't have a year ago is this constriction of the labor force, and that's challenging all companies out there that require labor to execute their programs or services. So obviously that's a motivation for automating or improving certain efficiencies relative to the fulfillment aspect. But at the core, it's still around having the sound and sustainable strategy. I mean, it's a broken record, but it's still true. We still have retailers who question some fundamental pieces of the business, like why do I need to be in pickup? Um, or why do I have to do this? And that fundamentally reflects a lack of understanding for the shopping dynamics and the customer and the marketplace that we are living in today. So, unfortunately, it goes back to, again, having a sound strategy. I mean, you can execute really well an unsound strategy. It's just not sustainable because it's not going to bear the fruits that you hope for, because there's no coherent synergy between those things. In strategy, we talk about first, second, and third order fit. And what we're missing in a lot of places is that optimization, that third order fit that comes from all these interlocking activities working as one, creating these synergies that you wouldn't get necessarily by simply focusing on reducing cost or improving efficiencies.
Yeah, and again, it's. I think anyone who would like to know more about improving their strategy, I think they would be well served to connect with you. You mentioned something earlier in our conversation about the hype around delivery. A lot has been made in the media and in the press lately about this quick commerce new market entrance. Is this something that grocers should be paying attention to, or is this noise just on the periphery?
Obviously, it's a development that's worth watching to a degree. I think there is no argument that there is a gap in the market relative to the opportunity to serve something faster. The real question is, what's the size of the market in the gap? Right now, what is clear, just looking at just the recent developments in the boroughs in New York City, is that the market isn't large enough to support the level of competitive activity that's already there in that market. More broadly, the question is, how does that market actually scale into other metro areas? But fundamentally, for the grocer, to your point, is this something worth investing in, or is it a distraction? You again have to look at the mission and the occasions that the rapid delivery are really appealing to. Not necessarily targeting, because I'm not sure they're targeting any other than someone who wants more immediate gratification. But the channels that probably should be paying the most attention would be convenience retail, who typically have the more immediate or emergency use cases. Someone who is shopping on the go for use within the next 30 minutes would tend to align more with convenience. Obviously, when it gets into prepared foods, then you're dealing with more fast casual. But now we're starting to get into dark kitchen, dark cloud kitchens and whatnot. So you can see how that starts to sphere. But from what we can see anecdotally, some of these rapid delivery, especially in the college towns, no surprisingly, do the bulk of their business between 10 and midnight. So if you're a grocer, even in a college town, you say, okay, well, what's in the basket? It's indulgent snacks. So that's sweet and salty. It's alcohol. So you can start to kind of create the persona. Who is that person? It's that person who's melting away on the couch, who just can't physically get into a vehicle or walk somewhere safely and get those products. And they're willing to pay for the convenience of doing that.
Yeah. It's a shame they didn't have this service when we were in college, right, David?
I don't know if it would be a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, access to more processed foods and alcohol could be good up to a point. And after that, I'm not sure what would happen.
So, David, let me. We won't explore that any further. Let me
appreciate that.
let me ask you what the viewers of this video and the readers of our shared content, what do they have to look forward to coming into 2022?
So one thing we're going to be doing is because of the expansion of dollar in online grocery, we're going to reveal what insights we capture on that retail format or channel. We do track the dollar channel. They've been in online grocery for a while, primarily or initially, I should say, in ship to home, but more recently, depending on which retailer we're looking at, in home delivery or in pickup. So they clearly are another area of the ecosystem that grocers need to be looking at, particularly those who are outside the urban markets where dollar stores tend to over-index online. So we'll be having that edition. We're going to continue to explore some other topics in and outside this initiative. As you know, Mark, we're going to really try to bring a more objective truth to a conventional regional grocer relative to these issues that are swirling around. So the topic of delivery, we look at is really a question of speed versus fees, or precision versus acceleration. But we'll look at it from what does that mean to the grocer, and what does the customer really want, right? Because what we can see is there's still innovation occurring in the market, primarily on the delivery side, and that's causing actually increased volatility in that user base. But it could be temporary, it could be permanent. It really depends on how appealing or acceptable those solutions are. The rapid delivery clearly is too early to tell. There's still a lot of dust that's been kicked up by all the market activity. I think, as we go forward, pickup is going to be the area that the retailers that are conventional and regional in nature are really going to focus on. And again, this is where the mass retailers already are, right? So the question is, how do we strengthen our pickup operations going forward? It's not to say let's ignore delivery, but if we have to emphasize or prioritize one or the other, and have a strategy that motivates or drives customer demand to one or the other, the smart retailers are actually trying to shift demand to the pickup in ways that make sense and are supported by the facts.
Wonderful insights as usual, David. Appreciate your time today. Let me ask, how do the viewers get in touch with you?
Well, they could connect with me on LinkedIn, or they can simply send me an email at david.bishop@brickmeetsklick.com.
And for the latest from Mercatus, check out mercatus.com. Links to all of this, as well as some additional suggested content, are in the description below. Be sure to connect with Mercatus on social at Mercatus Tech, on Twitter, and on Instagram, and at Mercatus Technologies on Facebook, and of course on LinkedIn. Please like, subscribe, and click that bell icon so you never miss a video. And thanks for watching.